Okay, so we're going to cover Chapter 4, Section 3B. Today we're going to learn how to write equations of parabolas. So when you want to find the equation of the parabola, if the vertex is at the origin at 0, 0, we're going to use the information that's given to find P and find the direction of the parabola, which way it's facing. And then we'll plug P back into the equation. So here, if it's y squared equals 4px, it's going to be facing left or right. So what this means is if it's the y squared, it's going to be the c or the backwards c. If your p-value is positive, it's the c. If your p-value ends up negative, then it's the backwards c. And then when it's the x squared, this will be the u, and that's when p is positive. And when it's the upside down u, this is when p is negative. So then, if the vertex is not at 0, 0, we're still gonna use the information to find p and the direction, whether it's positive or negative. And again, if it's the y squared, it's this equation, and that'll be the c and the backwards c. And then if it's the x squared, the u, and the upside down u. And it all depends on our p-value. What we're going to do is graph the given. Just give yourself a rough sketch so you'll know which equation you're going to use. So for example here, it says the vertex is at 0, 0. So let me go ahead and create my x and my y-axis. And again, just a rough little sketch. So my vertex is at 0, 0. And then it says my focus is at the order pair 2, 0. So it's right here. Remember, your parabola always surrounds the focus. So I can already see that this is going to be the y squared equation. And because my vertex was at 0, 0, I'm using the y squared equals 4px equation. If it were surrounding the other way, then I just know my p-value is going to be negative. So now what I need to do is figure out my p. My p is the distance that this point is from the vertex. And when you give yourself a visual, you can see it's 2 spaces away. So my p-value is 2. And then all I do is take the 2, plug it in for p, and my equation is going to be y squared 4 times 2 times x. So y squared equals 8x. So it will help to give yourself the visual, and if you can figure out how many spaces away it makes it easier. Now, another little trick here is if you remember, when your vertex is at 0, 0, your focus here is going to be p, 0. So I could also get my p-value by remembering this, that the p is located in the non-squared variable spot. Then for number 2, same thing. So again, vertex 0, 0, so this is 0, p. So technically, without giving myself a visual, I already know my p is 3/8. So let me go ahead and give myself a visual though. So if I graph this, vertex 0, 0, focus at 0, 3/8. Remember, your parabola surrounds the focus. So I can see it's the up and down graph. So this is going to tell me that I'm going to be using the x squared equals 4py. So you can either get your p-value from right here or realize the p-value the distance from the focus to the vertex is just 3/8. So that's what I'm going to fill in here. And then multiply this. Now, you can either put a 1 here and get 12/8, and then you got to go back and simplify. Or if you would have preferred, take the 4/1, simplify diagonally, and then it would have gone right to 3/2. Either way. So again, I'm going to give myself a visual, or if you remember, whenever the vertex is at 0, 0, this focus point, the p-value is in the non-squared variable spot. So this is going to be y squared equals 4px, because the 2/3 is in the x spot. But again, if you want to give yourself a little visual, vertex here is 0, 0. Focus is at 2/3, 0. So my focus is right here. And then you can see from here to here, from 0, 0 to 2/3, 0, you can see that it's only 2/3 away. So your p-value is 2/3, so let's plug it in. So y squared equals 4 times 2/3 x. And then nothing simplifies here, so just leave it y squared equals 8/3 x. When the vertex is at 0, 0, and they give you the focus order pair, it's super easy because that p-value is right there in that focus order pair. And know the spot that it's in, remember this order pair is xy, and wherever that number is, that's going to be the non-squared variable. It's in the x spot, so that's the non-squared variable. 2 ways to do that. So 2 ways to figure out which equation you're using. You're either going to give yourself a visual, and if you do that, remember the parabola always surrounds the focus. So whenever you see it's the c, that's going to be the y squared equation. Or the other way is to look at the focus order pair. And wherever the number is in the focus order pair, that's going to be the non-squared variable. So you see how 2/3 is in the x spot? So that's going to be the equation that has x that's not squared. So number 4. Now, this one's a little different. So this time they didn't give us a focus, but they gave us an order pair that's sitting on the parabola. So I'm going to go ahead and draw this out. X and Y axis, vertex, but they gave us the order pair 2, 12. So I'm just going to say negative 2, 12. So I'm going to say it's up here. So if I connect this, I can see that my parabola is going to look like this. So this tells me I'm going to use the x squared variable. So I'm going to be doing x squared equals 4py. Another clue is that it's on the vertical axis. So notice that it's symmetrical around that vertical axis or that y-axis. So then now what I need to do is find the p-value. But what I need to do is all I have is an order pair and my vertex. So this is x, this is y, and that's what I'm going to plug in and solve for p. So I'm going to do negative 2 squared equals 4p times 12. 4 equals 48p. Divide 4 over 48 equals p. I need to reduce that, and my p-value is 1/12. Now I need to take this p-value and plug it back in to get my final answer. So x squared equals 4py. This time I'm just plugging in the p. So x squared equals 4 times 1/12. y, multiply that, and x squared equals 1/3 y. What you're used to seeing is y equals 3x squared. This is what we're used to seeing. But I want the answers written like this. Because if you think about it, if we took this x squared equals 1/3 y, and we wanted to solve for y, what we're doing here is dividing by 1/3 or multiplying by the reciprocal. That cancels that, and then 3x squared equals y, which is that. So be able to manipulate it and see it both ways. But I want to see what I just boxed in blue, the green writing. Okay, so again, it's very beneficial if you can give yourself a visual, especially when the vertex is not at the origin. So remember, this vertex is your H and your K. And then what I'm going to do here is see which one I need to use. So I'm going to go ahead and graph these 2 points. So my vertex is at +1, +3. So right here. And then the focus point is always going to be on that axis of symmetry, or the axis of the parabola. So my focus is going to be right here. So this is the focus, this is the vertex. Remember, the parabola always surrounds the focus point. So I can see it's going to be the y squared graph. And notice my vertex is not at the origin, so I have to do the longer formula. The y minus k squared equals 4p x minus h. Now, technically, I could use this formula even when it's at 0, 0. But when you plug in a 0 for h and k, it just disappears. So now let me fill in the vertex. What I can do here is first I need to find how far away is this focus point from this vertex. So if you've given yourself the visual, you could actually just count the spaces. And you can see that it's 2 spaces away. So my p-value is going to be -2 because it's the backwards c. The other thing you could do is do the distance formula. And you would have to do the distance formula between these 2 ordered pairs. Now, whenever it's a horizontal or a vertical line, you see how one of the coordinates is the same. So really all we needed to do was subtract -1 minus 1. So this minus this, and that'll also give you your p-value. But by graphing it, it's a lot easier sometimes just to count the little spaces. So my p-value is -2. So now I'm going to go ahead and plug in my vertex, my h and k. So remember your k was 3, so y minus 3 squared. And then 4 times -2. And then my h was +1, so -1. So the only thing I need to do here is multiply this, and my final answer is y minus 3 squared equals -8 times x minus 1. And you're done. So back to a vertex of 0, 0. This time they gave us the directrix. Now if you remember, when it's at 0, 0, this directrix, this number here, is the opposite of p. So p is -1. But let's give ourselves a visual just to see what we got going on here. So if I go ahead and graph my vertex, 0, 0, and then the directrix is y equals 1, so it's going to be this line right behind it. So this tells me my parabola is facing down because the directrix is always behind it. But again, if you remember, what goes in here is going to be the opposite of p, and then that's your non-squared variable. So my equation here is going to be x squared equals 4py. This is what I'm filling in because this directrix is the non-squared variable. So x squared equals 4 times -1 times y. So x squared equals -4y. All right, number 7, still a vertex at 0, 0. So let's give ourselves a visual. This is going to be similar to the other one, but now notice the directrix is x equals. So this is going to be telling me it's going to be the C or the backwards C. But remember, this is opposite of P. So my P value here is -4. Graph the vertex, graph the directrix. So 1, 2, 3, 4. That's your directrix. So, and it's always behind the parabola. So it's the backwards C. So it's still the y squared equation that I'm filling in, and then 4px. So now just put in your p-value. So y squared equals 4 times -4x. So y squared equals -16x. Now here's another one where it's telling us it's going through a specific ordered pair. So remember, this is x, this is y when it's a point. So let's give ourselves a visual. 0, 0. And then the ordered pair, -2, -2, is going to be right here. So my parabola is going like this, and it says it's going with the vertical axis. So that means it's going to be up and down. So it's going to be the upside down U. So my equation I'm filling in is the x squared equals 4py. Now, for this one, I don't have a focus or a directrix, so I can't jump right to my p-value. I've got to solve for p by plugging in x equals -2 and y equals -2 and solve for p. So if I plug that in, maybe I'll come over here to the side. So -2 squared equals 4p times -2. So this is what I'm plugging it into. So +4, and then I can multiply these two, get a -8p, divide both sides by -8, and -4 over 8 equals p. Simplify that to -½ So now I take this newly found p-value and I plug it in. So then my new equation is going to be x squared, 4 times -½ y, 4 times -½ -2 y. And you're done. 2 more. Pretty good on number 8. Let's try number 9. Another one. The vertex now is not at 0, 0. So we got to do the longer equation, hk. So again, let's give ourselves a visual so we know which one. So if I graph the vertex, it's going to be +3, +2. And then my focus is going to be +1, +2. And again, remember, your parabola surrounds that focus. So this is going to be the y squared graph. So, and it's going to be, my p-value is going to be negative. So y minus k. K is always with y. 4p x minus h. So I can go ahead, since I've graphed it, I can count how many spaces away this is, and it's 2 spaces. So p is -2. Again, I could go back to my focus and my vertex order pairs. Don't use the 2's, and then just do 1 minus 3 and get -2 for your p-value that way as well. So now let's fill it in. So my k is 2. So y minus 2 squared, p was -2, h is 3, and then all I have to do is multiply this, and I get y minus 2 squared equals -8 x minus 3. And we have one more. Now, be very careful. Notice this one. The focus is 0, 0. This is not the vertex. Okay, so let's go ahead and graph this. So my focus now is 0, 0. And then my directrix is y equals 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Remember, the vertex is essentially the midpoint of the focus and the directrix. So again, because I've given myself a visual, I can see where the middle is, and my midpoint is right here. However, I can also do the midpoint formula, and if you remember, the midpoint formula is you add the x's, divide by 2 of the ordered pairs, and add the y's. So I would take the y-intercept of this equation, which is going to be 0, 4, and then I could do the midpoint formula, 0, 4 with the focus point, add the x's, divide by 2. So then my ordered pair for my vertex is 0 over 2, 4 over 2, so 0, 2, which is the same thing I just got when I just counted the spaces away. This was 2 spaces away, and this was 2 spaces away. So my p-value is going to be -2, because again, remember, the directrix is behind the parabola. So it's the upside down u. So my equation I'm filling in is x minus h squared 4p y minus k. So let's fill it in. So my h, so over here, 0, 2 is the vertex. So this is h, this is k. So x minus 0 squared, 4 times -2, and then y minus 2. Over here, this is going to just simplify to x squared. And then I'll multiply this, and then the y minus 2. And you're done. And that is it for writing the equations of the parabola given specific pieces. Whether you're given a vertex and a focus, a vertex and a directrix, or a focus and a directrix, or even maybe the vertex and an ordered pair on the parabola. So be able to create the equation. And again, giving yourself the visual sometimes will help, and then that way you can tell which equation you're using.